Hi, I'm Tom Croft and welcome to the virtual tour of my studio. So this is my portrait of Harriet Durkin, the A&E nurse at Manchester Royal Infirmary. She was the first to respond when I put out my offer of a free portrait to the first NHS key worker to contact me on social media, and I feel very lucky that it was Harriet who contacted me. I get on with her really well. She is a wonderful, warm, caring, generous human being. This reference that she sent me was her, in fact, trying her PPE on for the first time and waving to her mum in the photo. And I just like the fact that we could interpret it as her putting her hand up and saying either hello or just wait there. You know, it's almost that reminder of the need for social distancing and the 2-metre rule. So I found it a very powerful image, and I found that the light source was crucial too, to sort of pique my interest from an artistic point of view. So yeah, this is my portrait of Harriet Durkin. While traditionally portrait painters would work entirely from life, and there are still painters working today in that manner, I like a combination of live sittings where possible and lots of photographic references that I take. So at the first sitting, you try and put your subject at ease, you hope they relax, you want to find out what's an authentic expression and what's a forced posed one, and you get that from meeting them in reality and seeing them in real life. But then also the benefit of photography is that you can capture those fleeting expressions that would be all but impossible to maintain, certainly authentically, for any length of time in reality. So if you ask somebody to smile and hold it, you've got about 2 or 3 seconds before it looks shaky and forced and then possibly even slightly creepy. So you don't want to base a portrait on that. So I take lots and lots of photographs and I then put them into Photoshop. I've got a Wacom tablet and a pen, and I crop various different compositional options to show my client through some sketches that I'll make based on these, and you can colour balance and lighting balance and play around with some different options in Photoshop too. So I think part of the modern portrait painter's skill set needs to also be being across technology. So this is my bookcase that has slowly morphed into a receptacle for colour sketches and small still lifes and landscapes that I've done over the last year or so. Sometimes when I'm working on a large portrait, I'll want to figure out some colour relationships and do a little small oil sketch of it first to see what works or doesn't work. But also there's a landscape of Port Meadow, which is this vast expanse of sky that is just around the corner from where I am. And I love seeing the kind of weather front move across it, and you suddenly think, right, I better get back to the studio and try and paint that. That was amazing. I've got one of driving out of London the other day, and there was an amazing sunset, and I needed to capture that. Picture of my daughter putting a bizarre expression next to a light that we felt looked like an eyeball. So yeah, it's a store for my paintings, along with endless Tintin paraphernalia that I seem to collect every time I go to France. So a couple of years ago now, I was fortunate enough to travel out to Africa and go to Nairobi. And in Nairobi, there is an area called Kibera, which is the largest slum in Africa. And it's an amazing place. It's, as far as your eye can see, kind of tin huts, no bigger than 4 or 5 feet square, where, 7 or 8 family members were growing up. No electricity, open drains, high risks of all sorts of infection. And I got the chance to meet a rap star called Octo Pizzo, who has grown up in Kibera, is very proud to have grown up in Kibera, and is a regular presence there as a kind of, I suppose, sort of visual inspiration to and presence to people to realise that you can get out. He's very proud that he's made it out. He's very proud he's from there. It was an extraordinary, life sort of changing in many ways experience of just sort of walking through. And I remember talking to my youngest kid and saying, when we were thinking about what the experience might be like on the way over there, we had made lots of very patronising assumptions about how there might be a lot of crying, a lot of sadness, a lot of people looking very down. Quite the reverse. Fascinating to see how much positivity and happiness was radiating from the faces, and it was a reminder to me of not just how lucky we are, but to really not engage with all of the kind of material gain and the lack of happiness that any of buying into that mindset gives us. It was a real bit of a life-changing moment for me, I think, in many ways, and I feel very, very honoured and lucky to have met Octo. He's a wonderful, intelligent young man whose music is really popular and is making a difference, and he isn't just sort of following lots of kind of cliched rap kind of narratives to the songs. He's trying to be more positive about things, more respectful to women in his lyrics, and I found him, as did my kids, a real kind of inspiring and engaging and charismatic figure. So when I got back to my studio, I felt kind of moved to share him and Kibera as much as I could back in kind of middle class Oxford, and so I did this portrait of him. I took a load of phone pictures at the time when I was there, and you can see that in the background we've now got the slum of Kibera, and I wanted to give that sense of kind of him almost regally surveying his land. It felt like that is where he's from, but he's now almost kind of the master of it, going back there. And I like the contrast of this graphic print sweatshirt in contrast with almost a kind of biblical scene in some respects, a very, very humble scene in the background. So this is my portrait of Octo, and as you can see in the way that I've used the paint, I try and keep my strokes, especially if you zoom into the forehead, for instance, you can see how little I actually mix the colour on my palette. I like to keep things fresh, I like to keep things suggested at, but then when you zoom back out, hopefully the tones and the colours are correct enough to make sense. So I want to keep that kind of energy in the marks, and it was a really significant portrait for me of Octo Pizzo, the rap star. So this is my rather strange palette. So I've got these towers that have built up over probably about 10 years now, actually. And every time I start a session, I squeeze a bit of paint out, on the top of each colour tower that I'm going to be working on. My mixable area is becoming smaller and smaller, as you can see. So it won't be long before I have to ditch it and get a fresh one. But the paint at the bottom of these towers is completely dry. I don't know, I kind of like it. It's a sort of alien landscape. It's built up. I'm 6'7", so it's quite handy. It's slowly rising up to be the right level for me when I'm standing up to paint. I certainly know where to squeeze out each colour when I start a new session. I've had lots of cheeky people comment that it's the best thing I've ever done, certainly better than anything on the walls here. I've had people offer to buy it, bizarrely. And somebody suggested I should enter it into the Turner Prize because it's kind of the story of portraiture over a decade. So when I start a portrait, I always start by breaking up the white canvas with what we call a ground. Now that is just a kind of wash of a mid-value tone. And the reason you do that, other than just to get over the kind of daunting white canvas and get moving, is it helps me judge my tones. So if you imagine trying to figure out how dark or light this particular tone is on a white background, everything looks dark relative to the white. So this helps me quickly and accurately establish my tonal range of values. So then I like to base my portrait and hang it on an accurate underdrawing. Some people do this with a brush. I like to do it with a pencil just because I like to be super accurate at this point. And again, some people will work up from kind of blurred big mass tones and slowly whittle it down. I like to be fairly accurate right from the start, so this helps me do that. The other way I do it is I put a grid over my canvas, I put a grid over my reference, and that obviously helps me drawing up, being super accurate. To me, if a portrait doesn't look exactly like the person and have an accurate anatomical likeness, it's kind of fallen at the first hurdle. You know, obviously we hope to load on a deeper observation of personality and character when it comes to having a sitting, but in this case it allows me just to get a good structure to base the portrait on. In this case, I'm beginning a portrait of the fabulous Sarah Jane Moon, who is a fellow CBPP member, and we are all drawing and painting each other for a series of lockdown portraits called Life in Lockdown, and we will be having an exhibition of that once we've all finished our portraits. So this is my beginning of my portrait of her. Thanks for having a look around. If you'd like to come and see it in reality, or you would like to discuss any potential commission, then please drop me an email and I would be delighted to speak to you.